Ahead on NCBA's Cattleman to Cattleman.
On this week's special edition of NCBA's Cattleman to Cattleman, an in-depth look at the work of the Federation of State Beef Councils, plus a peek into the lives of two of the Federation's producer leaders. NCBA's Cattleman to Cattleman starts right now.
And now, NCBA's Cattleman to Cattleman with host Kevin Oxner.
Hello and welcome to this week's special edition of NCBA's Cattleman to Cattleman. I'm Kevin Oxner. Thanks for joining us. This week, we're learning more about the Federation of State Beef Councils and gaining insight into how the organization works. But first, let's get to know one cattleman who simply couldn't say no when the industry he loves asked him to volunteer his leadership skills. Cattleman to Cattleman reporter Matt Fleck has more from Central Nebraska.
I think anytime you come into this industry, you think you can change it overnight, and I think you figure out fairly quick that this business is a marathon and not a sprint.
Craig Uden is a fourth-generation Nebraska cattleman and partner at the Dar feedlot in the central part of the state. He also owns and manages 3 commercial cow-calf operations. He believes business success is personal.
We've got a lot of customers throughout the United States, and those relationships develop into friendships, and it's a win-win for all. As they grow, we grow, and the information exchange has just been tremendous, and it's been a pleasure to be a part of this industry and watch it develop and watch the industry mature over the last approximately 30 years.
In recent years, Craig has stepped back from many of his day-to-day management duties to serve as a volunteer beef industry leader at the state and national level. Craig says he serves for several reasons.
I'm one of these guys that has a hard time saying no. I get involved in a lot of things because I do think it's important. Somebody has to go back and somebody has to help lead this thing forward. As we bring on these new young people into the industry, if we're not happy and we're not moving the industry along, why would we expect those folks to join in and become involved? So I think you have to give back to the industry that's brought you to the table. I think it's beneficial for the industry, both now and for the future.
Another reason Craig participates is his belief that state beef councils across the country can pool funds, beef up national programs, and put the entire checkoff dollar to work.
Well, we're a large cattle state, but we don't have a lot of people. And we want to move the money where the people are. So with the Federation connection, we move that money into the Federation, that we can move that money on national partnerships. We can better utilize our dollars, and we've done some partnering with other states as well. But our main connection is moving that dollar where the people are. And I look for that to continue. I think that's just wise for us to do, and being a good steward of the dollar to put the money where the people are instead of keeping it at home. And with the Federation, there's 45 state qualified beef councils out there. And once that money goes in, then that can be filtered out to those beef councils as well. And that's where the people are. A lot of those other state beef councils are the opposite of Nebraska. They have a lot of people, but not very many cattle. So they can tap into these resources that we help provide, and they can help move our product along to their large population areas.
Craig says united efforts to maximize checkoff dollars are critical in providing the industry with its best bottom line gauge, continually increasing consumer confidence and demand for beef.
We need to pull together and we need to work to forge ahead. We've got good prices, we've got a good product. We need to keep our eye on the ball and keep moving the needle on beef demand.
At day's end, like most cattlemen, Craig sees his industry as an enduring way of life.
It's very rewarding to work with people and see them succeed. And you know, I've had customers that were small like me and have grown over the years and benefited. And now it's really fun as I've got several generations involved.
Reporting from Cozad, Nebraska, I'm Matt Fleck for NCBA's Cattleman to Cattleman.
And joining me in the studio is Federation Division Chairman Craig Uden. Craig, thanks for coming to our show.
Thank you for having me.
Well, we just got to spend a day in your life out in Cozad, Nebraska there, but tell us what's new at your feed yard.
Well, you know, it's kind of remarkable. We've had probably the most open winter we've ever had. And performance is good, prices have been good. As far as calving out cows, I've never seen a year like this. So I'm sure there's a day of reckoning, but we're appreciating the good weather right now.
Absolutely. Well, tell us this. Define for folks that may not be as familiar, what is the Federation of State Beef Councils?
The Federation of State Beef Councils are 45 qualified beef councils across the United States. And they work in conjunction. They're the producers that are the collective arm of the checkoff dollar. And they coordinate with the national programs. And that is the direct link to how national programs get brought to the table from the grassroots level.
And give us a history lesson, Craig. How did the Federation get started?
Well, actually, in 1963, it became part of the old Livestock and Meat Board. But before that, in '54, California and Montana actually had some producers out there that wanted to promote their product. Because as then as is now, we have a wholesome quality product that we wanted to promote, and so that's how it all got started.
Now, we all know that the checkoff currently sits at $1 a head, but where does that money go?
Like I said, we're the collective arm, so we take the dollar, and then 50 cents of that goes on the Cattlemen's Beef Board. And the other 50 cents is controlled by producers within their state beef councils. And they take those dollars and funnel some of those funds into programs that they conduct on their state level, and then the balance of that money can go on to the Federation for further national programs.
But who makes decisions relative to how that money's spent and where it's spent and so forth?
Well, it's all volunteer. There's 650 state beef council representatives out across the country. And they take those dollars and they decide what to do on the state and then on the national. They also facilitate up and are part of the joint committee structures that design national programs, and then those dollars are fed on to the national, their portion, and they help decide the overall goals of the national programs through the Beef Operating Committee. The Beef Operating Committee is made up of 10 Federation directors and 10 CBB members, and they look at AR, they look at projects that are coming before them, and then they take and decide what to fund for the next year's coming events.
So not everybody has spent as much time being a volunteer leader as you have. So for those viewers who may not be as familiar with CBB and ARs and all the words and terminology that what do you want people to know about the Federation of State Beef Councils?
Well, I want them to know the Federation of State Beef Councils is strong. Yeah. This is where the ideas come from and some of the money to help facilitate national programs. And it's like what's for dinner, and beef safety, all kinds of different programs that come out of the programs that are funded on national level. And we've put a face on the Federation, and we like to keep moving forward and promoting our product.
Well, thanks, Craig, for all the leadership you provide to our industry. Up next on NCBA's Cattleman to Cattleman.
I was born in Frankfurt, Germany. A military brat. I graduated from the University of Arkansas, was commissioned, and retired from the Army as a colonel in the infantry.
A visit to the operation of another Federation leader, this one in Oklahoma, who brings diverse experience to the job. Stay with us. We'll be right back.
You're watching NCBA's Cattleman to Cattleman on RFD TV.
These days, more cattlemen choose Draxxin to fight BRD than any other brand. Here's why.
It works. We have fewer repulls, and the ones that we do repull respond, and we have fewer chronics in the end.
To retreat anything it's a lot more expensive than using Draxxin as a first time.
And the evidence backs up what most cattlemen already know. Draxxin cuts retreats by 50%. So talk to your veterinarian and check the online calculator at Draxxin.com. You'll see why Draxxin should be your first choice to fight BRD.
Basically what it's allowed us to do with our operation is run more cattle through in a given period of time. It's just really been a good product to use.
Do not use in female dairy cattle 20 months of age or older. Do not use in calves to be processed for veal. Draxxin has a pre-slaughter withdrawal time of 18 days. Please visit Draxxin.com or call 1-888-DRAXXIN for more information.
Grow more low-cost forage and improve grazing access by clearing out weeds and brush with these Dow AgroSciences herbicides. See your Dow AgroSciences representative or visit rangeandpasture.com.
When it comes to versatility on your operation, nothing beats a John Deere D-Series skid steer. They're not only great for cleaning and feed chores, but with John Deere Worksite Pro attachments, you can tackle just about any job thrown your way. You asked for versatility, and John Deere delivered. These rock-solid machines are built to last. See your dealer today.
Welcome back to this special edition of NCBA's Cattleman to Cattleman. We're learning about the Federation of State Beef Councils and how it's involved in the beef checkoff program. And joining me in the studio to help continue this discussion is Craig Uden, Federation Division Chairman, Ann Whitman, Executive Director for the Wyoming Beef Council, Diane Kirkbride, a board member at the Wyoming Beef Council, and Todd Johnson, Vice President of Federation Services at the National Cattlemen's Beef Association. Thank you so much for coming to the show.
Thank you.
And I wanted to start with you and talking a little bit about the Wyoming Beef Council. Tell us a little bit about the history and how the organization is actually organized in Wyoming.
Sure, Kevin. The Wyoming Beef Council was established in 1971, and we had a checkoff prior to that, but this was a concerted effort by Wyoming cattlemen who had the vision and the knowledge, knowing that they needed to form an organization who could market the end product of beef. Mm-hmm. We have governor-appointed members, and they are representative of the different industry segments within the state, and they can serve for 3-year terms, and they commit a considerable amount of time and are very dedicated to ensuring that the beef checkoff dollars that are collected in Wyoming are spent efficiently and effectively.
And Diane, you are one of those board members, so first of all, congratulations on your appointment.
Thank you.
And secondly, tell us a little bit about how you set priorities and some of the work that the Wyoming Beef Council does.
We set our priorities on a yearly basis, and the 5 of us get together and we look over a consumer data survey and get some information from our producers and set our priorities. So for 2012, our priorities are working with nutritional professionals. That's our number 1 priority. Our second priority is working with our Wyoming consumers. And our third priority is providing producer information for the folks in our state.
That's outstanding. Craig, I've heard you use the words state-national partnership. Define what you mean by that term, and is it really a partnership?
Yes, it is a partnership. It's a grassroots movement of producers out in these qualified beef councils that go out and collect the dollar and then bring that expertise that they know how to, they find out what's going on, what are the issues, and they bring some of those ideas to the national level. Mm-hmm. And Diane serves on the Federation board, and so she's one of those 650 state beef council members that helps decide the way that dollar goes. Mm-hmm. They bring the ideas, they form a program out of these ideas and the funding that's collected and brought along. And then it goes back to the states and is distributed back to the producers and members throughout the entire country.
And Ann, what are your thoughts about this state-national partnership?
From a state perspective, I have to say that the state-national partnership is critical to our success. We are, because of that partnership, able to accomplish and take on tasks that we wouldn't be able to do alone. In our house, we have 2 staff people, and we cover the entire state of Wyoming, as well as markets outside of our state. And without the knowledge and the coordination with the others, we may be able to do 1 or 2 projects well, but certainly not the entire scope of what we're able to accomplish now.
So, yeah, you're able to really leverage then those dollars and the efforts of folks in your state. And Craig, you've done just that in Nebraska. I know you've done some really interesting things. Give us some specific examples of how this state-national partnership actually works.
Well, there was an influencer group that was identified by the national organization. And they came to our state and said, we bring these folks out and show them what operations are all about. So these folks that are very influential people and really connect with a lot of people wanted to see how cattle were raised. So on one day they came out and they spent an entire day on a cow-calf operation. The following day they spent it at a feed yard. Then they gathered up, got all their questions answered, and had a completely different idea. And it was a very good success story because when they came, very little of them had confidence. When they left, it was close to 100%.
Wow.
So it was a very good success, and now that builds on to more states and more partnerships down the way.
That's a great example. Todd, give us some perspective from a national level. How does the Federation work from your seat in the bleachers?
You bet. I see the Federation serving 2 big priority areas. One is we're a checkoff contractor. So as we talk to producers across the country about the beef checkoff program, we know that the Cattlemen's Beef Board watches over the 50 cents of every dollar that's submitted to the Beef Board. So the Federation is a contractor to the Joint Operating Committee to do checkoff programs. We're also home to the Federation of State Beef Councils, and to what Ann just referenced, the fact that the 45 state beef councils all come together under our umbrella, if you will, so we can share ideas and resources back and forth and really provide services back out to the individual state beef councils in your state so they can continue to do programs, again, funded by the checkoff, that really move the needle on beef demand. A couple things I want to point out. As a contractor to the checkoff, we are under very tight scrutiny for very good reason, not only by producers like Diane and Craig that want to make sure that those dollars are leveraged, but also by the Cattlemen's Beef Board and USDA to make sure those dollars are used very specifically in the checkoff areas of work and not outside of those guidelines.
Craig, it sounds like there's a lot of groups involved. We've got NCBA and Cattlemen's Beef Board and Wyoming or Nebraska Beef Councils, etc. How do all these groups work together?
Well, the beef councils, like Wyoming and where I come from in Nebraska, we make up the Federation of Beef Councils. And we send 10 grassroots producers that work, as we talked about, collecting the dollar, but move on to the national programs. And 10 of us sit on the Beef Operating Committee, and along with 10 folks that are with the Cattlemen's Beef Board. And we review programs that are brought before us. And these are brought before us by contractors such as National Cattlewomen's, U.S. Meat Export Federation, the Federation, as well as others. And then there's complete oversight by USDA, so they're involved. And we discuss all these programs, and then we decide which ones we're going to fund, and that is your future programs that are going to be back and dispersed back into the country through the state beef councils.
Very good. Well, speaking of programs, Todd, I wanted to ask you, tell us a little about some of the national programs that you operate.
You bet. As Craig referenced, the operating committee has that final authority over which programs will be funded on an annual basis. But in general, the Beef Checkoff works in 3 big areas: promotion, research, and information. So at the Federation, the primary areas of promotion include our advertising campaign. Beef It's What's for Dinner, recognized by over 80% of consumers, very successful in laying that bedrock understanding of our product. In the area of research, we work in several areas. You might think about the recent release of the BOLD diet, Beef in an Optimal Lean Diet, which is part of our nutrition research. We also do safety research, product enhancement. So those are the big areas of research. And then we also work in this area of information. If you think back to 2003 and the BSE case that happened here in the United States, the information program funded by the checkoff helped bring information out to consumers and to producers to help settle concerns about an issue like that. So if you think about those 3 big checkoff areas, we work in all of them. We also have this area of working with our state beef councils. To what Ann referenced earlier, our team at the Federation is able to provide very tactical services to our state beef councils, such as design services, designing brochures and graphics. We also provide communication tools, website development, etc. So those are the big checkoff program areas we're working on, and they distribute, as Craig said, across the country and around the world.
Well, Diane, give us an example of how you tie some of what's going on nationally with you all's priorities at the State Beef Council level.
Well, as I said, one of our priorities in Wyoming this year was working with nutritional professionals. And we were able to utilize the BOLD study and the presentation that was prepared for us to a group of cardiac rehab folks, which was a great opportunity to tell our story about this new diet. So that it was wonderful to have that information available. The other thing that we do, another thought was that we utilize some of the information we get from the National Federation to do advertisements, and we can specify them for Wyoming information, and it's ready and available for us to utilize. So we're very fortunate to be able to get that kind of information from the Federation of Beef Councils.
And what would you add in terms of how what happens at the national level complements what happens at the state level and vice versa?
Our shop has two folks in it, and so it's difficult to manage an entire scope of projects. With just two of us and the entire state to cover, we could probably do one or two projects well. But with the coordination through the Federation and all of our partners from the other state beef councils and our national staff, we can, in one day, talk about BOLD. We can educate producers about beef quality assurance, and we can still run advertising, and so we can have a really comprehensive, hard-hitting program that we wouldn't be able to do independently.
Craig, as Federation board member, I guess I'd be interested, how do you ensure that these programs that we're talking about actually create value for producers?
Well, we've looked at these programs for a long time. There's a planning process out there, and then as these programs get implemented, we come back with an evaluation and really do a deep dive into how these programs, what effect they had for the dollar, because these are hard-earned dollars by our producers. We want to stretch them as far as we can. As it's limited, we have to touch as many people as we can. But with that assurance of the evaluation committee overlooking those dollars, producers can be assured that their money is very well spent. And if there isn't any kind of issues, those plans of work then get retooled a little bit to be more effective in the future.
Todd, this is a big part of your job. What would you add?
Well, I would add that the industry has given us the roadmap to follow, and that's the long-range plan. We've talked about that on other shows in the past, Kevin. So when producers set the beef industry long-range plan, we as checkoff contracting organizations look to that plan as a way for us to build our programs so we can address that very specifically. That planning process is really ongoing. To Craig's point, we're starting it now for 2013, but we're also evaluating previous year's programs. So we appreciate that roadmap, and we follow it very closely.
Well, thank you all. This is a great beginning of a discussion. I think we've clarified a lot of issues, not only for me, but for a number of our viewers. And we'll continue with a day in the life of an Oklahoma cattleman who also donates his time to the Federation up next. We'll be right back.
You're not responsible for the weather, just the cattle. And Rangeland works as hard as you do to deliver performance, production, and profitability. Cattle need consistent nutrition. They'll get it year-round with Rangeland products from Land O'Lakes. Deliver what they need free choice in weather-resistant loose minerals and mineral and protein tubs. Get the most out of your forage. See your Land O'Lakes Co-op for products that will stand up to whatever Mother Nature throws at us. Weather's coming in. Rangeland. Consider it done.
They're out there, lurking on your pasture, just waiting to infect your cattle as they graze. Cattle worms cost you money, but a Safeguard strategic deworming program allows you to deworm your cattle and lower worm burdens on your pasture, resulting in improved pregnancy rates and heavier calf weights. Plus, there's a Safeguard form for every operation. So start killing parasites where they lurk. Talk to your animal health provider today about a Safeguard strategic dewormer program. Safeguard. Think strategically. Act decisively.
Hi there, I'm Joey.
And I'm Rory, and welcome to our farm outside Nashville, Tennessee. When we go to work, whether it's on tour or here at home, we wear the West.
That's right. Whether it's that perfect snap shirt or that perfect pair of boots, when you wear Roper, you wear the West.
Learn more about us, Joey and Rory, and about Roper Western Wear at eroper.com.
Telling the truth and being real and feeding my family that's important to me. And planting the garden and watching it grow.
Welcome back to this special edition of NCBA's Cattleman to Cattleman as we take an in-depth look at the Federation of State Beef Councils. We'll get back to our discussion shortly, but first, there's no doubt being successful in the cattle business takes leadership and a commitment to lifelong learning. Those are qualities you'll find in the Vice Chairman of the Federation of State Beef Councils, as Brian Baxter brings us the story of Oklahoma cattleman Richard Gebhardt.
Dig just a little bit and you'll find there's a story on every cattle ranch. And for Richard and Susan Gebhardt of the Beacon Hill Ranch in northeastern Oklahoma, that story begins in the early 20th century.
In 1910, my great-grandfather bought this place, moved here and built the barn first, and then once he had the barn squared away, he built a house. They initially had dairy cattle ages ago, but then switched to beef cattle and eventually switched to purebred Hereford cattle. So as my grandfather got older and was unable to take care of them, Richard and I came, and the land and the cattle got passed from my grandparents to us.
We keep Hereford cattle because they do well in the heat, they do well in the cold, they're very efficient in their utilization of forage and cubes. The other thing they do, if you're a black cow guy, you want a shot of hybrid vigor, a Hereford bull will flat put some vigor in your cattle. We like our purebred Herefords because of the ease of keeping of the mothers, and they just seem to do well. The other reason we really like Hereford cattle is the disposition. Life's too short to be run over by cattle, and so we like our cattle to be nice and calm.
Despite his keen eye for top-of-the-line Herefords, Richard didn't grow up in the cattle industry. His life began on the other side of the Atlantic Ocean.
My father was a retired Army officer. I was born in Frankfurt, Germany, a military brat. I graduated from the University of Arkansas, was commissioned, and retired from the Army as a colonel in the infantry. And this is my second career. Actually my third career, because my second one, I'm an associate professor of operations management at Collins College of Business at the University of Tulsa.
Both Richard and Susan balance careers off the ranch, but they have worked together to evolve their ranching practices and improve their herd's performance.
Normally what we focus on is what in our mind's eye is an ideal mama cow. And if we can get the genetics and the performance and the reproductive efficiency in that cow that we're happy with, then we just try to improve that one generation after the next.
Traditional calving seasons are January, February. About 4 or 5 years ago, we moved our calving season to March, April, so that we time it with the growing of the grass. 2 years ago, or maybe 4 years ago, as diesel got more expensive and it cost more and more money to roll up a bale of hay, we're using more and more stand-in forage here. I've reduced the hay cost by half. The real bottom line is I've learned to work with nature and not try to modify nature.
The vision of the Gebhardts goes far beyond their fence lines. Richard is a firm believer in beef quality assurance. He is BQA certified, and both he and Susan are graduates of the Masters of Beef Advocacy, or MBA, program.
Over the last 6 or 7 years, I see a great threat to our industry, and I think it's important for producers and cattlemen to get involved. I was looking at a number the other day, and whether it's true or not on the internet, but there are twice as many people that say they're vegetarians or not eating meat than there are people involved in production agriculture right now. I think it's important that we advocate on our behalf and teach the public about what we do.
Don't be afraid to tell your story. Because I think people are more interested than you think they are, and I think there are so many ways to just weave it into everyday conversation in your off-the-farm workplace, and to do it in a nice, friendly way that helps people understand who we are and where we all come from.
Richard has served in leadership with the Oklahoma Beef Council, the Oklahoma Cattlemen's Association, and now the Federation of State Beef Councils. And he believes it's crucial to get involved with the groups that best represent cattlemen's interests.
If we are only 3% of the population of the United States, involved in production agriculture, it's real easy for our voice to be lost in Washington, D.C. I think it's important for every cattleman to belong to his state association, his local association.
Reporting from the Beacon Hill Ranch in Oklahoma, I'm Brian Baxter for NCBA's Cattleman to Cattleman.
Unfortunately, Richard couldn't be with us today, but we greatly appreciate the time and energy he dedicates to our industry. It's important to understand that beef checkoff dollars are distributed with a purpose. States with a high number of cattle typically don't have a high population, and vice versa. For instance, 15% of the U.S. population lives where 62% of checkoff dollars are collected. 28% of the U.S. population lives where 7% of those dollars are collected. And following up on that, there are more cattle, a lot more cattle than there are people in Wyoming. How does the Federation account for that?
Kevin, you're exactly right. We have in Wyoming 2.5 times more cattle than people. And so what the Federation does is it allows us to be able to promote our product where the cattle can be consumed as beef versus where they're being raised. If we were to try and consume what we raise in Wyoming, each man, woman, and child in the state would have to eat 16 pounds of beef a day. And we could try, but I don't know how long we'd last doing that.
I understand. And what would you add to that, Diane?
Well, I value that the Wyoming Beef Council has looked at those figures and understands that we have 500,000 people in the state and 1.3 million head of cattle. So it's important to send our money to the place where the consumers are and to be able to promote our product and try to sell more beef to those consumers.
So Todd, tell us a little bit more about how that reallocation actually happens. Mechanically, how does that work?
You bet. Well, first of all, kudos to the folks who created the checkoff program we have today, because they set this system up so that 50 cents of every dollar collected automatically goes into the Cattlemen's Beef Board and then is allocated out through the operating committee. So structurally in the law, we know that 50 cents is going on to national programs. The great thing about the Federation and the way it's structured is we now provide a home to the additional 50 cents upon voluntary action by state beef councils. So we become a home, if you will, or a pooling for what state beef councils might want to contribute beyond what they use at the state level. So structurally that happens with the dollar. The other thing we have going on within the Federation is a specific program called the Federation Initiative Fund. So this is a pool of money that generates about $200,000 a year that state beef councils like Wyoming or Nebraska or South Dakota can contribute to specifically, that will then go back out to small collecting state beef councils in the form of grants. Okay, so the dollars are a little bit different in that they're not pooling together to do national programs, but what they're doing is going back to a state beef council who might want to do a specific program at the state level in the area of retail or nutrition influencers, or recently the Washington, Idaho, Oregon beef councils came together with California Beef Council and sponsored a endurance runner who covered the coast of Oregon in a week-long run, talking about the value of beef in a diet and nutrition and exercise for young people. That was funded through this Federation Initiative Fund. The great thing is, because of the bold diet that we talked about earlier, he had nutrition messages about how beef fits into a lean diet. So you can see it all comes together. We've got national dollars doing research, we've got state beef councils putting that on the ground and bringing it right to the consumers.
You know, these discussions create lots of questions and, frankly, some misperceptions about both the checkoff and the Federation. And I guess, Ann, I'd ask you, from a state beef council perspective, what are some of the most common questions you hear?
I think there seems to be a concern among producers about the level of involvement that they have and the opportunities for involvement that they have. And the truth is that this is a grassroots organization. The decisions are made from being on the State Beef Council and those priorities, whether that Beef Council decides to invest in the Federation or in national programs or at the state level, that's determined by producers from each individual state. Then you can follow that up with those producers also select who serves on national committees. And from those national committees, then selections are made for further leadership, including those who serve on the Beef Promotion Operating Committee. In addition, you have producers who are evaluating those programs in the end. So it's a producer-driven organization, none like anything I've ever worked for before, and very rare and unique in that. And I think it's important for producers to know and understand the vast number of opportunities for them to become involved.
That's great. Todd, you know, there's some blurred lines, or I think some seemingly blurred lines, between activities that are more policy-driven and activities that are more checkoff-driven, and clearly with NCBA being one of the primary contractors, I think there's lots of questions that I hear about that. Could you respond to those issues?
Certainly. I think, first of all, we have to sit back and look at the issues that our industry is facing. They are not cut and dried, very simple consumer issues or regulatory issues. For example, let's talk about the dietary guidelines, the My Plate program that focuses schools and nutrition experts around what is a healthy plate. That issue has an element that needs to be addressed within USDA and the regulatory arenas. Similarly, it has a consumer outreach effort that very clearly fits within the checkoff program of work. NCBA as an organization is uniquely qualified to address both sides or both areas of that issue. And very clearly, as staff members, we keep close time on where we spend consumer or producer dollars, and if it's a checkoff funded activity, it does not cross the line into policy activities, and vice versa. But the synergy you get by looking at that complex issue together is what we've got to do as an organization, as an industry, if we're going to solve the problems we face.
Yeah. Very complex issue. Craig, from your perspective, are there one or two misperceptions you'd want to clear up with folks?
Well, on the operating committee, everybody thinks that the money goes to very few contractors. And like I said before, we have 10 from the Federation, 10 from the Cattlemen's Beef Board that make up the operating committee. We have planning process, and we go through meetings throughout the year. We normally have 3 meetings. In the fall, this fall in September, we'll decide the 2013 plan of attack that's developed by these joint committees and proposed on all different levels. There's actually 45 to 50 eligible contractors out there.
Really?
That they're open to come and present an authorization request for a program that would benefit the industry. And those folks bring them in there. It's a cost recovery system. I want to make that perfectly clear. It's cost recovery. So you have to align with the plan, and then you have to carry out the work, and then you get paid for afterwards. And it's strictly guided by USDA, and it's quite interesting to attend, and it's open to the public because for a full day we review these proposals and then we decide where the money is to be spent. It's a huge responsibility. We owe it to our producers that paid the dollar, and we take this job very, very seriously.
Yeah, I'm sure you do. Diane, we were talking earlier about some of the phone calls you field from producers in Wyoming. What are some common questions and misperceptions you hear from some of the folks in your state?
Well, it's interesting. One of the questions that I often get is, why are you sending our checkoff dollars out of state? And why aren't you utilizing all of that money in our state? And of course, it goes back to what Ann was talking about, is that we just don't have the population, and we need to focus on the populations, like in the state of New York where they have 19 million consumers. We need to focus on them. So I hope we can help our locals understand that. One of the other questions I think is interesting is people often ask, what happened to those beef, what's for dinner TV advertisements? Because people love those, and it was a great way to focus on our product. And truly what happened in a situation like that is that we went through the committee system, and the committees analyzed how our money was being spent and what they would recommend that the money go towards. And it's a tough decision, but it's grassroots cattle people that are making those decisions in the committees. They make the recommendations to the Beef Operating Committee, and the Beef Operating Committee is the one that makes those decisions. And the decision was to move on and do some other advertising, and we need to focus on some of the different social media that's now available, and that's the way we can promote our product. So that was the decision that was made.
Well, for whatever it's worth, I can tell you that my wife thinks that she would rather see Matthew McConaughey as opposed to hear him on the radio. So just your thought.
But he's got a great voice.
That's right. Well, this has been a very insightful conversation. Thanks for clearing up some of those issues. There's still more to come on the Federation of State Beef Councils. We'll be right back. Stay with us.
Preventing cattle pink eye is as easy as 1, 2, 3. 1. Vaccinate your animals with Piligard Pink Eye TriView to provide pink eye fighting antibodies in the tears that bathe the eye. Broad spectrum protection that cross-reacts with 103 different strains of pink eye causing bacteria. 2. Stop the flies that spread pink eye bacteria throughout the herd. Apply double barrel VP ear tags and Ultra Boss Poron for up to 5 months of face fly and horn fly control. 3. Manage the environment to reduce damage to the animal's eye from seed heads, pollen, and UV light, irritants that increase the risk of pink eye infection. With the right tools, preventing pink eye is as easy as 1, 2, 3.
There are 2 things you need to know about Sweet Licks. Number 1, they offer a complete line of vitamin, mineral, protein, and medicated nutritional supplements. And number 2, they're available in a variety of forms and sizes. What you need, how you need it. For your nearest dealer, just pick up your cone and call 1-87 Licks. That's with an X.
Profitability never tasted so sweet.
I'm Kevin Ochsner, host of NCBA's Cattleman to Cattleman. Check us out at cattlemantocattleman.org or on Facebook and Twitter. Welcome back to this special edition of NCBA's Cattleman to Cattleman. We're wrapping up our discussion about how the Federation of State Beef Councils operate. Todd, what are your concluding thoughts?
Well, there's 2 dates that I'd like to throw out I think we should focus on a little bit. One is 25 years. That's when our national checkoff program came into play. And the other is 50 years. It was nearly 50 years ago that the Federation of State Beef Councils came together. So kudos to those early day pioneers who created state beef councils and created this federation as a voluntary way for state beef councils to invest additional dollars into a national program that is aligned with the long-range plan. So I think the federation serves a very unique role in matching checkoff dollars against a national plan.
Very good. Diane, what would you tell our viewers?
You know, it's a real privilege to serve on the Wyoming Beef Council and on the Federation of State Beef Councils. I've learned a lot. I have an opportunity to go to meetings and meet other producers. You learn from them, and they learn from us, I believe. I think it's important to be knowledgeable about our beef checkoff, and there's lots of information out there, but it's a great way to acquire more information, to be involved, and I challenge folks to do the same, to be involved on their state level and on the national level.
Well, thank you and other producers like you who voluntarily provide your leadership. Ann, what would you share?
Kevin, I have 2 thoughts, and the first one is that I cannot stress enough how important the relationship between the states and the Federation is. Because from a state perspective, we could all out there be reinventing the wheel, trying to do bold research and find a consumer target. With the partnership that we have, we're able to capitalize on more resources than we have exposure to alone. So we've not only got pooled dollars, but we've got pooled talent and expertise and knowledge. And the second thing is that from the ground up, this program is grassroots. And thank heavens for the producers who are involved in the program, and I hope that the others know that it's their neighbors and their friends who are the ones who are making the decisions and evaluating the decisions.
Very good. Craig, what would you add?
Well, first of all, it's been a pleasure to work with these folks right here. And I want to thank the 650 board members out there that serve on beef councils. They are the grassroots. But I also want to challenge all producers out there today to understand what their dollar is doing and how it's spent and the good that it does them and all the value that it's added to them. More than ever today, with all the issues that are out there, we need to be focused and we need to keep moving forward, and they need to become more involved in understanding in what's going on.
Well, thank you all for your commitment and your leadership to our industry. To learn more about the Federation of State Beef Councils, head to beefusa.org and click on the Federation tab. We'll be right back.
This spring, don't turn out a leftover. Turn out a Reputation Leachman bull. On Wednesday, May 23rd and May 24th, Leachmans are selling 150 bulls, including Angus, Red Angus, and Red and Black stabilizers in their first Grass Time online bull sale. Leachman bulls are designed to breed profitability into your commercial herd, with each bull receiving an evaluation from weaning to yearling for performance, feed efficiency, fertility, ultrasound, and disposition. With Leachman bulls, you can build a more profitable cow herd while raising steer calves that are easy to market using the Leachman reputation, unsurpassed in name recognition among order buyers, stockers, and feeders across the country. Don't be nervous about buying a bull online. Call Leachmans and let them select one specific to your herd needs. They guarantee 100% satisfaction. If you don't like the bull, you don't own him. Leachmans will also deliver your purchase. Call or view the lots at saledayusa.com and let them go to work for you.
Dust off those boots and come join us in Tampa, Florida for the 2013 Boots on the Bay Cattle Industry Annual Convention and NCBA Trade Show. This is your chance to network with industry leaders, participate in important cattle industry meetings, and learn about the newest technologies available. See what all the buzz is about at the Cattle Industry Annual Convention and NCBA Trade Show in Tampa, Florida, February 6th through the 9th. For more information, visit beefusa.org.
Let's face it, you don't think a lot about your trailer hitch. You use it and forget it. We understand. But at B&W, we think about it. Short nights, long hauls, never-ending chores. The unthinkable. We think about it all, so you don't have to. B&W. Trusted.
Lots of cowmen put a little extra into their calves, hoping it'll bring them another nickel at the sale, like preconditioning, early weaning, or for specialty markets. But how can the buyer trust your claim? Old vaccine bottles or your ratty tally book? Truth is, this little green ear tag will be all you need. That's what IMI Global does, third-party verification. The seal of approval, like the nutrition label on your Twinkie. Did I say Twinkie? IMIGlobal.com. It was one of those surreal moments in a cowboy's life. I was sitting at the cafe on a rainy morning, breakfasting with Rodney, when he asked if I'd ever tried the Breath of Fire Kundalini. I said, well, I didn't care for Italian food, but I do like jalapenos, speaking of Breath of Fire. Well, he asked me if he seemed taller. It's yoga, he said. The Fountain of Youth Kundalini Yoga Pranayama. Everybody's doing it back home. I can sing again. I can dance the Glen Ellen polka, touch my toes and see more clearly. I couldn't do this till I signed up for the Fountain of Youth Yoga. So this is an exercise program, I asked. No, it's much more. You just need to spend 15 minutes a day doing the special positions and breathing fire. Can you touch your toes with your nose? He asked me. Truth is, I said, I don't know if I'd want to. Even if I could. My dog can reach a lot of places on himself that I wouldn't want to see up closer. Let me show you the easiest position. It's the corpse pose. Rodney lay down on the floor on his back with both his head and feet perpendicular to his body. Try and hold this position for 11 minutes. Looks to me, I said, if you could hold it for eternity, you'd be cheaper to bury. You'd fit in a shorter casket. One more. Let me show you one more. It'll change your life. Rodney stood and bent over, legs straight, arms outstretched, palms flat on the floor. He looked like an upside-down V. It's the Kundalini Archer pose. 3 minutes with long, deep breathing. What's he doing? Asked the deputy sheriff. Breath of fire? Well, what's he looking for? The Fountain of Youth. I think he's been drinking. The deputy spoke into his walkie-talkie. I'm down here at the cafe. We got another cowboy bent over, peering between his hind legs. I know. Just get the detox pen ready.
This is Baxter Black and Rodney from out there.
For this week's Legacy Photos, we thought we'd feature the hard-working folks at beef councils from around the country. Let's have a look. Your legacy photos. Now there's two ways to do so: at cattleman2cattleman.org or post them on Facebook. That's where you can like the show and submit your pictures. Just search NCBA's Cattleman to Cattleman. Thanks so much for joining us for this week's edition of NCBA's Cattleman to Cattleman. We'll see you right back here next week on RFD TV.